Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode number 113 of Gaston's Great. As some people have heard before, it's a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and we're coming to you once again from the worldwide headquarters of GSM Services. We simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. We are highlighting another great organization. Actually, we are highlighting, again, a great organization, but it's been 2.5 years since we had this group on. We have Joe Yavalak and Kurt Voorhees with us today. Joe, otherwise known as Flintstone, is the current Nantan of F3 Gastonia, and Kurt, also known as Roscoe, was the Nantan this past year of 2023. What are you shaking?
I'm still the Nantan until January 1st.
That is correct, but when this is released...
Oh, that's true.
It will be January 4th, I think.
Touche.
So this is exactly what I was talking about before we started. I've got the mic. So, yeah, if you haven't figured it out, we're talking about F3 Gastonia, F3 Nation, just the F3 concept in general. And we'll let them explain, and we'll explain what all this means when I talked about Flintstone and Roscoe. But Joe and Kurt, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us. Good to be here. Appreciate it.
Only answer questions when you've been asked, and don't only respond or talk when you've been asked a question.
Yes, sir.
Let's go. Okay, so as usual, if you haven't noticed, I know these guys pretty well. Matter of fact, just this morning we were out in the gloom together. I was trying to chase these two guys down. I was in the back of the pack a little bit today as they were out running from what we call the pub this morning. But I'll start maybe with you, Joe. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, anything you'd like to share before we get into the F3 Gastonia.
That sounds good. Appreciate it. I'm Joe Yavalak, F3 Flintstone. I'm the current Nantan of F3 Gastonia. I'm a 2000 graduate of Ashbrook High School. I'm a longtime educator with Gaston County Schools. Currently, I'm employed as with Gaston College as the early college liaison for Gaston Early College High School. In Gaston County, I'm a lesser-known Yavalak. My mom has worked with Gaston Dance for years designing costumes. My wife is a rock star, educator, artist, and baker, and I've got 4 siblings and 2 sons who are also native to Gaston County.
That is definitely true about your ilm.
Yeah,
for sure.
Right.
And your better half. And he is a tutor extraordinaire, as my wife and I and our kids have discovered.
Oh, dear, don't let that get out.
Yeah. Yeah, he's retired from that, by the way. All right, Mr. Voorhees.
Yes, sir. So my name's Kurt Voorhees. I'm more or less lifelong resident of Gaston County, Gastonia, born and bred. Went to Sherwood Elementary, went to Greer Junior High, went to Ashbrook. Had some good leaders at those schools, Dr. Sadler being one. And I'm married to my wife, Becky, for over 25 years. We have 2 boys. One is a junior at Appalachian State, and I have a 7th grader at Cramerton Middle School. I retired from Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department in January of this year, or actually last year now, and went back to work for another great family-owned, multi-generational company in Charlotte.
All right, very good. So, yeah, again, I mentioned this briefly, but yeah, Kurt and I actually go way back to elementary school carpool. Sherwood Elementary, and Joe and I go back, gosh, long before F3.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah. First Methodist Church, maybe, was that first? And some basketball we played a little bit at First Methodist Church before we got too old for that. So, again, we're talking about F3 Gastonia. So I'll start with Joe, but these questions are going to be really for both of you. For those that might be hearing this for the first time, haven't heard the other episodes, or may not be familiar, there probably are some listeners that just aren't familiar with what F3 is. Just Joe, real quick, give just your quick, what is F3, and then kind of and then both of you, how did you get involved with F3 and why?
Sure. The mission of F3 is to plant, grow, and serve small workout groups for the invigoration of male community leadership. It's there as a opportunity for men to get fit and to make strong relationships and friendships that they can utilize when things get tough in life and everything else. We operate off of 5 core principles. The first is that it's free. So everybody likes free things, and so F3 is free of charge. It's open to all men, held outdoors, rain or shine. It's peer-led in a rotating fashion, and it ends in a circle of trust.
So, yeah, Joe went straight to the meat of F3. So, Roscoe, jump to you. What are the 3 Fs?
Oh, it's fitness, fellowship, and faith.
Okay.
And fitness being the kind of the intro, because that's how most men find F3 is they see somebody who's maybe in shape or has a certain joy about them, I think, that they might want to be a part of. And so they ask about it. And when they hear it's free, it kind of sells them, but then they find out it starts very early in the morning. And for most guys, they don't want to get up that early. Most weekday workouts start at 5:30. The Saturday workouts at 7, which is when we started at 7. And I can remember in 2015 thinking, my gosh, that's early. And I had to give up my normal Saturday morning haircut to come out in April of 2015. But once I realized that F3 is really about showing up for the guy that might be there alone. And when you start living for other people, it really makes a difference in your life, and you put yourself last. And you can do that with your family and your relationship. So it's really a leadership organization. When you start working out, you start leading workouts at some point, and that gives you some confidence, and you realize it's not all about you, and very positive all around.
So, all right, Kurt we heard a bunch of stuff there, so I have to be careful because the 3 of us especially, we're so ingrained in it, right? We have been drinking the Kool-Aid for a while, and so we'll try to make sure, we have listeners out here like, what in the world are y'all talking about? So F3 Gastonia, it was March 2015, I think, right?
Yes.
Correct, when we first had the first workout here we met at the Shield Museum, and of course I didn't start until really late April, early May. I think it was like the first Saturday in May of 2015 was my first workout. But F3 Nation, or F3, was started on January 1st, 2001.
11.
Correct? 2011, excuse me. I'm sorry. Yeah, 10 years off there. So, yeah, in a couple of days from recording this, of course, it'll have just passed when this episode is released. I guess the 13th anniversary of F3 being started in Charlotte will have passed. So, most people that I talk to, and you guys can jump in here, think it's a workout group. And I think it's easy to get caught in that's what it is, but but you both have pointed out very succinctly that it's a leadership group. It is a group that was organized to, in layman's terms, to get men back focused, to, I think, invigorate, right, is the word that's used in the mission statement, or reinvigorate. Male community leadership. And so what does that mean? So the workouts is kind of the vehicle or the tool that's used to bring men together. And because there's also an issue, if you read anything, listen to any podcast, read anything about men our age, well, I don't know. Flintstone's way behind.
A little younger, yeah.
Yeah, Flintstone's way behind Roscoe and I. There's an issue as we get older about men having connections with other men. We can get trapped into this cycle. And there's another thing I like about F3 is this language. It's almost like it's a whole what we call the lexicon of F3, where this words and language that we use that kind of brings us together too. It's almost like the old stuff we used to. I mean, some of it's based on military because one of the gentlemen who started was an ex-Army Ranger. But it kind of goes back to the nicknames and the things we did as kids with, when we were on teams. And so it's kind of bringing that back together. So that's the point, I guess, is, what we're trying to accomplish. And the faith piece is just there. And it's very intentional that it's not Christian-based, even though in the South it's probably the majority are probably Christian, but the organization in general is very specific, not to be Christian focused. It's just believing in a higher power of some type. So, what attracted you, Joe, to the group once you got involved? Because I'm going to tell you, the last few years you have been, I would say, the model what we call PAX. I mean, you have between the way you work out, the interaction, the leadership, just everything that you've done, kind of maybe since you've codded back
Right.
to F3? And what has driven you to be so inspired and involved, and now being, maybe we should explain what I've called both of you Nantans. So what is that? Maybe let's address what does that mean first, and then answer the second question.
The first question, I guess, is the Nantan is basically the person, the head cheerleader, right? The person who oversees what's going on, and at the same time is just there to support all of the many different. As a leadership group, there's a lot of different leadership opportunities, and it's just being the person that's there to help out and oversee those things. What drew me to the group is the same thing that I think draws all of us. It's the fitness part, right? That's it's the magnet that brings guys in to the group. It's that's a main piece. Is you're trying to think of ways to get better, and knowing that this organization exists. And like you said, I'd been in it for a while. But I hadn't been active in it in a while, and so it was on the tail end of COVID when I had been doing some running, but I decided that I wanted to get out, and I've heard other people describe the same thing in the past, in that I was a fit runner, but I couldn't do 10 push-ups, right? And so it's in the process of trying to.
I mean, you better, brother.
To build strength, and in doing that, knowing that and quite frankly, being cheap. Like, I didn't want to get a gym membership, so I decided I could show up in the morning and work out, and that was a big piece. But what kept me coming is the thing that's the most important part of F3. It's that you show up and you're struggling, and it's your first or second time out there, and I could run all day, but on this particular day, we were doing, probably more push-ups than I would like to do, and I was having a hard time getting through there. And all of a sudden, I've got people jumping in on my left and right and doing them with me, and they don't know me, and I have no idea what's going on right now, but they believed that I could do it, and they pushed me to do it, and then I just kept showing up, right? And that's a lot of the battle, is just continuing to show up. And as I showed up and the other guys believed in me, I started to believe in myself as well. And that's a big piece of it, is that belief. And it's a feedback loop really that happens in F3, is all of us now who have been here for 3, 5, 8 years doing this thing, we've seen guys come in and transform their lives and become leaders who weren't, and all of these kinds of things. And so when we see a guy show up and struggle, we know that he can do it, even if he doesn't know that he can do it. And so I think that's a huge piece of what we do, is we provide that belief for the guy that's showing up until he believes in himself. And that happened to me. And as a result, again, just from the fitness side of things, I dropped 50 pounds. I shaved 2 hours off my marathon time. I can do a pull-up, right? Like, these are all things that
I'm not sure I can still do a pull-up, but I can do other things, right?
These are all things that I couldn't do. I had this idea in my head that growing up I could be anything but fit, right? And, overcoming that obstacle has been liberating and so inspiring to me to be able to do other things. And so that's kind of where I've been able to blossom as a result, is, because those two guys were on my left and right that first time doing push-ups with me. And I didn't believe in myself until I got, further into it. And then I'm doing things that I didn't know I could do. And so that's been a big part. That's a big part of what we do as an organization, and specifically what happened to me is a result of being here.
Yeah, these two guys here with us today, they're probably known as, there's a group of extremely fit guys. I mean, there's different levels of fitness in F3, but these two guys will be in the bat flipper category for different reasons, and where I would be in that vein would be a bat boy in that vein for the most part. So Roscoe, Kurt, what is your kind of story about what got you out there, and then what has kept you involved? Because you're really much considered what we would call an F3 or Redwood, who kind of was there from the beginning here in Gastonia.
I think for me, I actually heard about F3 from an accountant in Charlotte a year or so before it was planted in Gastonia, and I thought, well, what is this all about? But after a few guys from church joined or went to the first couple of workouts, I decided that I wasn't as hurt as I thought I was. I had a little twinge in my Achilles or something, and I went out and I remember being humbled the first day because I always thought I was somewhat fit, not necessarily cardio, but more hitting the gym. And I think we did 30 4-count jumping jacks on the first set after running a quarter mile. And I thought, when is this going to stop? And I've been through, recruit training and all that. So it was very similar to that. And so I was comfortable, and I just wasn't prepared for guys in their 50s and 60s to be kicking my tail around the field. And it had to go on for an hour. So that told me that I wasn't where I wanted to be. And since then, I started to admire and emulate those older guys. And I think that's another byproduct of the fitness part, is you realize that you can look forward to that. And I knew that once a week wouldn't get me in shape, and I had to do stuff outside of F3 to be prepared just for the once a week workout. But in Gastonia, it grew quickly, and within 5 months, we had, I think, 5 additional workouts, and that kind of thing has been available to the men in this county, and it's just a great thing personally for me to learn from other guys and to really just don't take yourself too seriously, but to realize you don't have it all figured out. Whether it's fitness, somebody's going to be better, whether they're younger, older, heavier, lighter. You're not the lead dog. And it's a good lesson in life that it's not all about you, and you can't underestimate people. So being humbled and doing the hardest part of your day first is a fantastic routine, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
All right, very good. So that gives you some good insight, I think, about at least 2 stories about F3. Mine is very similar. I was 44, I guess, when I showed up to that first workout. Yeah, and the first few months were, a bit of a struggle. I was in decent cardio shape, actually. I was running on and off a little bit, but boy, drop down, do some Merkins. It was embarrassing, maybe is the right word. But to your point, that was only a personal thing. It wasn't what anybody else was doing or saying or making me feel that way. It was just how I felt. Right? Nobody was, give me a hard time about it, because most of us were in the same boat, frankly, at that time. So. A question we like to ask is, and I'm sure initiatives is the right word. I talk about initiatives, but what, on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis, how many workouts are there? And, we hear there's all these crazy terms we use in F3 instead of initiatives. But what are some of the things that's happening, say, in F3 Gastonia on a week-to-week or month-to-month basis?
We have 27 weekly workouts in 6 towns in Gaston County. We have 2 seasonal workouts that we tried out this year. One was called Snooze, for those people, I'll say it, bankers, that don't have to go to work, I think.
Basically, it was a banker who started it.
Basically, selfishly. So, but
short sale.
But it was good because you could go to the 5:30 workout and then drive 5 minutes and go to another workout. So a lot of folks doubled down on that. We had another one that was selfish, just to prepare ourselves for a crazy race that we run that involves a lot of hills. And so we opened that little area of operation up for another workout. And so that's what we have going on. We have weekly meetings called Q Source. The Q Source was a book that was written by Dave Redding, who's one of the founders of F3, and it's a 50 chapter, which just goes well for a year. So once a week at Harris Teeter in Belmont and Harris Teeter in Gastonia, we have 30-minute leadership sessions on either the book Q Source, and we go by chapter, or we pick other sort of leadership books to learn from, and we lead that in a rotating fashion, and every week somebody else takes the lead on that. There's other programs we have. One's called the Whetstone, which is basically a mentorship program where we match people, 2 guys together. Typically one guy will be a little older, have a little more experience, and help shape and teach the younger man, but in anything that you teach, you you learn just as much as the person that you're trying to help. We also have something called a shield lock that certain guys match up, and it's all about accountability. So as much as F3, it's going to be hard to share everything about it on a podcast, but it's not all about fitness.
It would have to be a Jocko length podcast.
It would have to be 4 hours at least, and
we can do that
need
today.
some caffeinated drinks to get through it. But
Jocko Go could get us through it.
That's right. But there's no better feeling. I was going to say this, that there's been many stupid things that we do, and when you have friends that'll do them with you, they're like brothers. And I've had multiple times where it's early morning in a parking lot and somebody rolls up because it was my idea, and they say, I need to get better friends.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of group we're in. It's basically romper room for grown men.
Yeah. Or, I get a text the day before, I'm going to be out there at 3 a.m. So that's the dumbest thing I've ever said. Well, actually, before it's not at 3 a.m. I hear about the dumb thing, and then somebody will respond, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. When do we go? When do we start?
When do we start?
So that's a good one. So terms like CSOP and sad clown syndrome and some of these, things that are the basis, I think, for the fellowship. Talk briefly, we're both of you, talk about maybe what does CSOP mean? What is sad clown syndrome? And why is F3? Because that's really what F3 was created for, was to combat what F3, the founders, call sad clown syndrome.
And y'all jump in as you need to. The idea, I guess, with sad clown syndrome is when a lot of times we go through the motions in life, and if we're not careful, I guess you can get in a rut. And I think that's just a good way to put it. Is sometimes you are just going through and you show up for work and you do your job and you do a good job at your job, and you show up for your family and you handle your responsibilities, and then at the same time you're putting on a front that everything's okay, but at the same time you're not, you don't have that I don't know, the
connections.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of sad clown syndrome. It's kind of the F3's phrase for what I was trying to describe earlier. I'm not sure I did a good job of articulating it, but over time, as men lose connection and everything can be great at work, everything can be great at home, kids and family, but there still could be something missing. And typically, women are just better at developing relationships and keeping relationships than men are. Right. I'm not afraid to say that men are different than women in that particular item. Men struggle with that, especially as we get older, to maintain that type of connection with other men, to go out and do stupid things. CSOP stands for completely stupid and utterly pointless. Yeah,
and the stupider the better.
Yes,
right. And,
exactly.
And that's kind of how it goes. Is the harder it is and the stupider it is. The idea behind it, right? And y'all know this is that those stupid things, by doing those hard and stupid things together, you form that bond in that
Correct.
relationship. Think college, right? Or think some of those other times that you did things that were dumb. And it was a different kind of stupid back then, of course. And we've all got a little longer in the tooth and matured a little bit since then. And at the same time,
most of us,
right? But at the same time, the harder they are, the stupider they are, the better the stories are, the better the bonds are. Like that's kind of how that piece of it goes.
I'll say this. I think thinking about a sad clown, it just means happy on the outside, but struggling on the inside. And for me, I had a very demanding job where I was on call a lot. More times than not, I would have to go back to work after coming home. And so the things that I would look forward to were like my annual high school beach trip. I've got a bunch of good friends, but they don't all live in Gastonia.
Right.
And the guys that I work with live all around. And so you do have it's who your kid's hanging around, but you don't really have deep, meaningful relationships with folks. But when I used to look forward to that beach trip every year, it only comes once a year, and I'd be looking forward to it in the gloom of December or November when it doesn't come around until April or May. And so F3 is kind of something where you end up meeting more people, having fun, and you can look forward to Thursday morning,
right?
And you're getting it done before before the day starts, and it doesn't interfere with your family because nobody's out of the bed yet.
Yeah.
Most of the dumb things we do is before anybody even wakes up, and we're having coffee and, and hanging out and coming home, and you have more energy. It's kind of a paradox. The more you exercise, the more energy you have when you go home. I get more done on a summer sunny Saturday than I used to do all weekend,
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then you're free for your family, whatever, you're down for whatever, because you're already fulfilled. So
yeah, that's a great point. So my college roommates that I was very close to, two are in the Raleigh area. One is up in Silva, North Carolina, and another one is up toward in the Virginia area. So one thing about F3 that they know and learn is proximity matters,
right,
in those relationships. Listen, I'm still great friends with those guys, but I don't see them. We text often, but I just don't see them as often as I used to. And then F3 has become, the shield lock. The 8 or 9 guys just this morning, right? Yeah. That we ran through some neighborhoods and had conversations about some things that were dumb, some things that were important. Some things that matter, some things that didn't really, matter in the grand scheme. And so, that's another piece I would say is the people I've met and interacted through F3. Without F3, I never would have met them because we've got, it's a very diverse group of backgrounds, where we work, our interest. It's been just for me personally, a really good experience on that level. And we have done some stupid things. And I would never, ever relate this directly to the military, but the bonds that are built in the military is because they're doing hard things through boot camp and then deployments, and they're doing hard things together on a much smaller scale. We're not doing anything like that that's dangerous, so to speak, and putting our lives at risk. Except sometimes I've seen guys run across the street in traffic, which is pretty stupid, but
right.
Or they wear all black when they're running. But no, nobody in this room would do that
on the sidewalk.
Yeah. So, but my point there is there is something about that with men going through those silly things and hard things that does build a bond or stories or something that connects us together that we maybe had in teams in high school, maybe, and roommates and fraternities in college, maybe. But then then everybody's dispersed, right? You don't get that anymore.
Well, and that continues to be the case as we get older too, right? Because we work, but our groups that we work with change. We have people that leave, that come and go. We have kids that play sports, and we run around with their parents. But then all of the reasons why we build those relationships as men, I think, make it so that it's hard to keep good relationships. And I think that F3 gives us a good opportunity to do that.
All right, so thinking on a broader scale a little bit. We talked a little bit about what F3 here in Gastonia is doing, but on that broader scale, what have you seen? Or again, this is a podcast about Gaston County, right? Gaston's great, and why is Gaston County such a great place? So what would you say? Why is Gaston County better in general? Because F3 is here and active, and frankly, 27 workouts. Right. Most of them are early in the morning. And to your point, what I used to think before F3 was early, I don't think it's early anymore.
Right.
So yeah, why is Gaston County better?
Well, we didn't touch on the third F, which is believing in something bigger, but it's basically service as well. And so we've done a lot of things in our existence where we've raised money for the Gaston Boys and Girls Club, provided presents for kids. We've pushed some special need athletes in wheelchairs through, racing chairs through really cool community foundation runs or McAdenville. We have an Adopt a Highway. We're just trying to make the place better. And anybody that has a good idea that is service related, including rice and beans, we've had blood drives that we've hosted.
Least of these
right. Carolinas, we've adopted families. We have we had a couple guys in Dallas do a 24-hour run for charity in Dallas. And, that's what we're all about. It's about making Gaston County better, and F3 is a part of that. And not only in those tangible things, but each man that comes out and learns from one another ends up using those leadership lessons at the home. And that's, to me, probably another one of the most pressing issues we have in society is being responsible and accountable to being the man you're supposed to be as a parent and a husband.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of it, I think that last point is kind of the thought, right? We have, as Stephen mentioned earlier, we have all kinds of different people in our group. We've got city councilmen, we have business leaders, we have blue collar workers, educators, doctors. Like there's all kinds of people who, when they show up at 5:30 in the morning, are all the same.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, and that's when it's open to all men, it's open to all men, and nobody's any different in the gloom, which is cool. But as an educator, like I work as an educator, and one of the things that we do is we invest in kids and we pour our time into these kids, and with the end, like a tangible result is difficult, right? But you know that the effort that you put into the kids and the work that you've done with them is the kind of thing that, will come back. And it's the same kind of thing is with F3, we are strengthening, we are working to strengthen the individual men who are in our community and the people that are part of the group. And so because it's free, among other things, we don't really have a whole lot of an agenda, right? We just want everybody to grow stronger and be better men in the arena that they're in, right?
And period. I mean, that's pretty much it. To your point, there is there's no other agenda within the group.
And so it makes it hard to quantify our results at times too.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's what we're in it for is, so that there are people on your left and right when you're struggling through something.
All right, so I think we've hit pretty well on kind of the mission, the overall. But it's so like so many things, even things that we've talked about in this podcast before. Sometimes it's without experience in it, it can be hard to, to get the message full completely across. But looking ahead, I mean, what do you guys envision F3 Gastonia looking like 5, 10? A classic question is 5 to 10 years down the road, but doesn't have to be that long necessarily. What's the plan? What's the future? We have a leadership team that you guys have been involved with the past couple of years. So, what looking ahead? How would you answer that?
That's a good question.
Or is it for me, the answer is almost super simple. We want to impact more men,
right?
Which is going to impact more families, which is going to impact more businesses, which is going to impact our community as a whole. I mean,
the truth is there are pockets of the county that we have a stronger presence than others, right? And so, as and at the same time, there's not really a whole lot of pockets of the county that we're completely not in either, whether it's just the people that are showing up or what. So, I think that's probably one of the opportunities for growth there is to have to impact, like you said, more communities by having by having more workouts in different parts of the county. We can make that kind of impact.
I think there's an opportunity for, like, Joe's working for the early college, so you're talking about 18 to 22-year-olds probably. And if I had F3 when I was 18 to 22, it would have been a life changer. I mean, I think there's an opportunity there for young people to come in and really be impacted at an early age to make better choices. And I just think that's an opportunity we'd have, and we want to get more men in it. We have 1,432 different men that have shown up to workouts in F3 Gastonia, but we have consistently about 200 that are at least one workout every 3 to 6 months. So I think we can get stronger there in terms of growth to impact more men, and then maybe dive into a charity, maybe select one or two that we focus on consistently as opposed to, the piecemeal. But the other good thing about F3 is it's decentralized. So if somebody has a good idea to support something, there's going to be at least one other guy that's going to help. And it's either successful or we learn from it. And that's the whole point of this leadership experiment we're doing.
All right. So I got to be careful because I could talk about this for 2 or 3 hours, right? Because it is something I'm so passionate about. In fact, even people here at GSM will probably get sick of hearing about F3 and Jocko, don't you? So Is there anything I haven't asked? I mean, we're going to swing back. There's a couple of questions I've got, but is there anything I haven't asked that I should have asked, or anything that you'd like to share real quick before we shift gears slightly? But I'll make sure we hit on a couple other topics. And it looks like the two of you have both brought about 2,500 pages of notes. So I'm sure I've missed something.
No, let me come back and talk really quickly about the workouts themselves, right?
Gotcha.
Because if you're new and listening to the podcast and you don't know what it is these workouts are that we're talking about.
Aaron, that's a great question. Great point.
So the workouts through the week, they start early in the morning, like we've mentioned, right? About 5:30 is about the start time for the workouts, and they last about 45 minutes. There are opportunities if you're a runner. There are run workouts where you're running and getting in however much distance you want to get, but probably a maximum of 5 miles there, unless you want to run before or after the time. There are also boot camp style workouts, which generally means some combination of running and body weight work.
Yep.
There's also some more low impact workouts that involve using kettlebells, and so those things are out there as well. But F3 workouts are opened up to men of all fitness levels. So regardless of where you're at, whether you're in great shape or terrible shape, there's going to be a workout that is for you. The workouts are also designed to keep the group together and at the same time allow every man to push his limits. We have like a saying, it's you versus you,
Yep.
right? And so every person gets the opportunity to make of it what they want to make of it. And like I said before, if you're the one that's struggling, there's going to be somebody right there with you kind of helping you along. Again, not because they feel bad for you, but because they've been there too, and it's that help that...
And it's easy to, that's when I think early on I said something about it's easy to forget that it's a leadership group. And so, yeah, you can get caught up in just the fitness part and at the workouts, you can forget that maybe somebody's there for the first time. That's why we have what we call cues or leaders and site cues who are over a particular workout. And part of their job is when somebody new comes is to make sure they're not left behind. I think the other, you versus you, but there's also the saying of, leave no man behind. Excuse me, and also, but don't leave no man where we found them. Right. So don't leave them behind, but we want to help them progress.
Yeah.
As they work out with us.
And then it's peer led, right? And so it's not led by some expert who has written the book on all of this stuff. It's just peer led. And then back to the timings. 5:30 a.m. on a weekdays, but if that is too early, there's a 7 a.m. workout on Saturdays. And so we have workouts set up in specifically on Saturdays in Dallas, in Gastonia, and in Belmont. And then if none of those fit, we have some afternoon workouts at 5:30 p.m. at Poston Park as well. So that's kind of
so we try to remove the I can't find a workout excuse.
Right.
And then the other thing that we hear a lot is, I got to get in shape before I come out to work out. And I'm sure I was thinking that as well. Of course, it was so new here that at the time, the word hadn't gotten out really about what the workouts were like. I mean, I didn't do any research beforehand. And I immediately discovered it's just not like that. So if that's what you're thinking, I think the kind of story or joke within F3, that's kind of like saying, well, before I go meet my friends at the bar for a drink, I'm going to stop at another one on the way to make sure I drink beforehand. I mean, it just doesn't, for us now, looking back, that doesn't make sense. But we also understand why somebody would think that.
Right. They need to check their ego.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Seriously, it's hard when you first come out. I remember being mad that my soft, pristine hands were getting impacted by the rough surface of the gravel doing bear crawls and thinking I wish I had gloves and now I don't even care if I have gloves or not. It's just it's all in your mind, and that's making yourself durable by coming out to these workouts. But nobody should be deterred from coming out, because literally we've had guys running down the street and say, hey, come on over here, and they join us for the workout, and next thing you know, they're like an active member of F3. So the barrier to entry is there. We don't leave people behind. If your fitness level's bad, it doesn't matter. Nobody's judging you. You're judging yourself, and that should inform you of what you can do to change it. All
right. Before I turn this into a Jocko length podcast, we do like to shift gears here and have some personal questions for our guests, and we are not going to let them off the hook, regardless of their Gaston County knowledge. They've both been here their whole lives, basically, so they should be able to answer these questions.
I was born for this.
Very quickly and distinctly, and we're going to call this the
Discipline equals freedom round of questions.
there you go. This is the deaf round of questions because we're going to have the deaf reset here soon. All right, y'all ready?
Yes, sir.
Flintstone, favorite Tony's ice cream flavor?
Chocolate milkshake with the vanilla dollop on the top.
Man, that's legit.
Hard to beat. Chocolate all day long.
Have we ever had two people say chocolate at the same time? I don't think so. Sundrop or Cheerwine?
Yes. Sundrop when I was younger, cheer one now.
Sundrop, cold, no ice.
Favorite local restaurant?
Time Out in Dallas, the best liver mush on the planet.
Wow. Better than CDA liver mush?
Yes, sir.
Kyle Fletcher's Web Bike Shop, Ray Nathan's Portofinos and Tequilas. Tie. Although Kyle Fletcher's my guy.
Getting them all in. Favorite outdoor activity or place to visit here in Gaston County?
Rock Top Trail at Crowder's Mountain. It's my favorite.
The Rock Top.
I love it. I love it out there.
That's a serious hiking trail, at least for one close, yes.
I spent a lot of time out there with my family, so I appreciate that one. Favorite park, Martha Rivers.
We're there quite often.
F3 is my favorite outdoor activity because it's always held outside. We haven't reiterated that. And I love Martha Rivers and the Catawba Creek Greenway, but lately I've been spending a lot of time on Rocky Branch because it's close to the house, and it's a good trail.
Absolutely. All right. I know the two answers to these questions, but I'm going to ask anyway. UNC Duke or NC State?
NC State.
Appalachian State
Actually,
University.
I'll take that, but I appreciate Flintstone's answer because he does have, I guess you're writing some checks in that direction at the moment. Yes, I think his son just finished his first semester successfully, I understand as well. So very good.
Yep.
And so I appreciate you not saying Virginia Tech.
No, I think my allegiance at the moment is definitely with NC State.
Gotcha.
So.
All right, Roscoe, what is something very few people know about you?
I have 4 guitars, and I like progressive rock and heavy metal.
That's not fair. I knew that.
Right.
I'm not sure I knew about the 4 guitar part.
I've never seen the Goonies.
You've never seen the Goonies?
Never seen the Goonies. And
Do you have any idea what we're talking about? Okay.
I saw Die Hard for the first time a couple weeks ago.
Is it a Christmas movie?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's hard to say.
Right answer.
It's hard to say it's not a Christmas movie. I think you have a harder time proving that it's not a Christmas movie than
it is. You know what? It's an F3 Christmas movie.
It is. It is.
Oh, my. That's
And
good.
Jeb Stewart wrote the screenplay from Gastonia. Trivia.
You mean Jeff Stewart, the Civil War?
Dr. Jim Stewart's son. You know that.
Yes, it is. So, Flintstone, how about a recent book or something that you could, or podcast you listen to besides Gaston's Great, which you've never heard before, apparently. A book, podcast, article, something that you could share with our listeners?
I think Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday is one that I've read relatively recently that's been a good one. The idea that the thing that stands in your way is also, like, if you can overcome the big things, then it opens the world up for a lot of other opportunities.
That's a very F3-ish concept. Yeah. And Stoicism, he's the Stoicism, maybe the modern Stoicism guy. Yeah. So, yeah, I've read multiple books of his and read and have his daily devotional. Sir?
I like the Daily Stoic, same author.
Oh, it's great.
But I'm a fan of like daily intelligence briefings and things like that you can subscribe to. So kind of see what's going on in the world. They're not as long as the books that you read, sir. But I try to get through a few books a year too. But Daily Stoic's good because it's a page a day.
Very good. So listen, I appreciate indulgence on those few questions there. That is really what our listeners are here to hear about. So few more questions and a couple of the comments I'm going to glean from you guys. So, yeah, remember this is podcast about Gaston County. So besides F3, why would you say Gaston County is such a great place?
You know, as I've had the opportunity to grow in a lot of different ways over the last, 41 years. But being a part of Gaston County, it's the people, right? It's, people like you, Stephen, who are out here doing things and spreading the word of what everybody else is doing, so that, we have the opportunity to learn that. The more I get to know the individuals in the county, the more I see the pride that they take in the things that they do, and the good work that everybody's doing. That's why I'm proud to be a part of it.
Very good.
That's the most common answer I know. I think about we have a Friday workout at the Rotary Pavilion, and when you're doing sit-ups, looking up at the top of that thing, all the names of the folks that are there, we've all are familiar with the names if we're old enough, I suppose. But those are the kind of people that you want to be. You want to make an impact in your community, and it is the people and the goodwill that we have, where everybody really tends to get along and look for the best in each other, and just a great place to be.
Well said, both of you. I appreciate that. So sticking with you, Roscoe, what knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Don't be so concerned about what other people think about you. I think that held me back a lot, because I'm always concerned about judgment, but that's kind of gone away as I get older.
I'd say for me, it's don't avoid challenges. The hard stuff, what I've found is the hard things are the things that are worth doing. And so as a 20-year-old, that's not at all what I was thinking.
Yeah, both of you just described something that when I was 20 that was way too concerned about, right? I mean, just what's somebody else thinking, and that looks hard. I am going to avoid that. I can't do that, or whatever. Yeah, that's just perspective. Unfortunately, I know I've said this, I bet 113 episodes, but I've said this 50 times after that question, is it just, unfortunately, I believe it just takes some age and experience to gain perspective, on those type of things. I wish we could just, to your point earlier, when we were that age, if we'd had F3, maybe might have had to learn some of these lessons sooner from others who knew better. So something I want to swing back to, because 2.5 years ago, we had two great guys on, Robbie Patterson, otherwise known as Broke, and Dustin Less, otherwise known as Whoopi. But something that's changed here in the county since then is we didn't have an active workout group for women. There is a group called FIA, Females in Action, that is currently active in Belmont. And so, again, I think I had that question. We talked about it 2.5 years ago when those guys were on, but it just wasn't active. So that is the question we occasionally get, right? Is, well, all I hear about is this group for men. How about the group for women? Well, guess what? There is an active group for women. And if you just Google FIA or FIA Belmont and on social media, you'll find it. Luckily, I've got to know some of the individuals involved, including, in fact, both my wife and my two daughters have been to workouts. So I would encourage you females out there listening. There is something that's very, very similar to F3 out there for you guys. So, all right, this has been really good. So I'll swing back to let you guys have the last word here. So where can listeners go to learn more about F3, find the schedule, just anything and everything you guys can share about where they can learn more?
Really, there's a couple things. There's the F3 Gastonia website. It has all of the workouts there and a lot more information about what it is that we do. And so it's f3gastonia.com. There's an opportunity to see things there. We're also involved in social media. There's a I guess I'm gonna call it Twitter,
or X.
Yeah. And so there's that. We have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram, and then there's also the F3 Nation website is a good one as well. You can go there and check it out, because there's a map of all the workouts on the F3 Nation website, and it also has a little bit more information about what it is and how it came to be and all those kinds of things. And at the end of the day, I can give the three easiest workouts that I know to tell listeners if all they want to do is hear this and then jump in. Saturday, 7 a.m.
Yep.
There's a workout in Dallas at Cloninger Park. There's a workout in Belmont at Stowe Park. There's a workout at the Shield Museum. So if you show up on any Saturday at one of those 3 places, you can get a workout in and just show up, and there will be somebody there, excited that you'll.
There's also one a little earlier in Dallas that I guess it's called Dallas Park now. It used to be Biggerstaff Park at 6:30 on Saturdays. And I would agree that's how we started. That's how I have found that an easier sell at 7 o'clock on Saturday than somebody first coming out at 5:30 on weekend. And then there's so many resources on there. We mentioned things like Q-Source and some of the leadership stuff, and some, I'm gonna mention a couple books that y'all mentioned. Y'all mentioned one of the books that's directly related to F3. But so this is for both of you. Any last words before we kind of try to close this episode out here so Naomi can go home. We got to get back to work tomorrow.
I've got a quote I want to read, but first I'm just going to tell you personally, your friendship and leadership has impacted me positively over the years, from the time we were little carpoolers with our socks pulled up to our knees, cramming 7 kids in a Dodge Aspen.
Like the Griswold mobile.
I have a picture. Maybe we'll post it on your website or something.
Well, your mom has posted it for all the glory at my Rotary meeting. So.
Oh, nice. But I heard this the other day. I want to share it. The only thing constant in life is change. The only thing that is absolutely certain is that tomorrow will be different than today. It may not be better or worse, but it will be different. And we have choices with that. We can either resist that change and get worn down like the rocks on the beach that turn into sand and get annihilated, or we can adapt to the changes and move like the water itself.
Oh, wow. Did you write that?
No, I heard it.
Right.
That's really good.
I've got nothing that deep. At the same time, if you've made it this far through, then maybe you want to come, or you have somebody else that you know of that might be good. And so here's the last thing, right? Here are some reasons why you might want to show up. If you want to get in shape, it's a good place to go. If you want to meet new people, come join us. If you want to make connections in the community, and get to know people and maybe, serve in your community, there's a good opportunity there. If you're looking for a challenge, we'll have plenty of challenges for you. If you have goals but just need help with accountability, we'll help you out there. If you want friends to do things besides eat and talk, right? We have an active group of people who are doing things, so come join us. If you have a gym membership and you either want to cancel it or actually use it, that's a good reason to join us, because we have lots of people who still work at the gym and still are part of F3. And if just in general, if you want to be a better person, if you have an area that you want to grow, F3 is a great place to go to grow, no matter what direction it is that you're looking to grow in.
Well said. I mean, that is your quote, Roscoe and Flintstone, you really brought that together well. And I'll just tell I'll try to keep it short, but I'm 53 today. My first workout was I was 44, but I would argue that I'm in better shape today than I was at 35 for sure. And I sure weigh less. But yeah, I've done things since 2015 that I wouldn't have imagined. I mean, this year I have covered, now this isn't just running, but running, boot camps, and rucking. We didn't really mention rucking. There's also a rucking piece. If you're not familiar with that, it's basically, some good paced walking with a heavy pack on, or some type of weighted pack. That is a surprisingly difficult and great exercise. But between those two things, I've covered I'm just under 1,350 miles in 2023. So if you told me 15 years ago that I would do that at age 53, I'd be like, you've lost your minds. Just this morning we had a group of guys that ran 5 to 7 miles. And something else I didn't mention is we had a guy from Greensboro who we've gotten to be friends with. So another great thing about F3 Nation is, and I've posted in Chicago, I've posted in Boone, at Ocean Isle Beach, in Atlanta. If you travel, you can find these workouts, and the guys, you can show up with an F3 shirt on, and they welcome you like you're just somebody that works out with them all the time.
Quick story. I had a guy, my wife won a trip. We were in Hawaii, and I was talking to a guy and telling him about F3. He's from Nebraska. So fast forward 2 years, F3 goes to Omaha, Nebraska, and they explode with growth. One of our F3 Gastonia guys goes to the College World Series to see NC State play in Omaha, I hook them up. This guy that I know in Omaha picks up our guy, takes him to the workout, hospitality, coffee, the whole work. So that's the kind of thing. It makes it a small world, and we have a network of guys that do everything. We do need a plumber and F3 guys. That's the most requested, but we have like a Craigslist sort of.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Sort of page. If you need something today, somebody asked for a wrecker service. There's somebody that knows somebody that can get you help when you need it, and that's another advantage of the relationships we form at F3.
Yeah, I mean, we have a Slack channel that within F3 Gastonia that there's communication all the time. All day long. So which I've got to get better about getting on there. Right, I occasionally miss something.
We talk about you.
Yeah, I know. All right, so guys, this has been great. I appreciate it. Like I normally do, I'm going to finish up with some book recommendation, a quote, but I'm going to actually mention 3 books today, actually. The first 2 are, I mentioned back on episode 13. And, I meant to mention that. So episode 13 was our first discussion about F3 Gastonia, and here it is exactly 100 episodes later, which, again, if you told me in July of 2021 that we would have 100 episodes still going later, I've been like, yeah, that's another thing, like being able to run 7 miles this morning. I mean, that's another thing that I would have said, nah, that's probably not going to happen. But there's a book called Free to Lead that was written by the 2 founders of F3, and another book, The Q Source, I think Flintstone and Roscoe both mentioned. It's a leadership study that we do here we've done it multiple times, and I actually, matter of fact, this past year here at GSM, every Wednesday I sent out to the leadership group here a chapter. I modified it a little bit for maybe more for business, but again, I had 50 weeks of leadership information that I utilized, the Q Source model and the Q Source information to send that out. So that's something you can Google and go on Amazon and find, but again, I would encourage you to check those books out. Another book I've recently read, kind of shifting gears a little bit, is a book called 21 Lessons for the 21st Century by an Israeli named Yuval Noah Harari. He's written multiple books. If you're familiar with the book, I think he wrote Homo Deus, and also the Homo Sapiens is the other 2 books he's written. All 3 are very good books, but again, it was written just before COVID, so I would be interested to get his take on the world now since that occurred. And I'm going to stick with my quote. It's the exact same quote I used on episode 13 because this is kind of an underlying theme also within F3, and it comes from Proverbs 27:17 that says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." Ultimately, that's kind of the idea behind F3. It's individuals helping other individuals be better. Aye. Very well said. That's another. Also, F3 Nation, F3 Gastonia, check out the lexicon. Check out the, I guess it's called Exicon, right? The exercises. There's another thing about F3. We've got all this crazy language that other people don't understand, which makes it cool. Like we're in our own little club or like my wife said, we're our own little cult, which it kind of fits the definition of a cult, but a positive cult, not a bad cult. So, to our listeners out there, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode. Please continue to spread the word if you can about the podcast. And please don't hesitate to contact us at our email address, which is podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at the website, gastonsgreat.com. And please follow us on all our social media platforms. And as Naomi reminds me always, please give us a good 5-star rating. That helps us get noticed. Thanks again to Joe and Kurt, or Flintstone and Roscoe from F3 Gastonia, for being our guests today. Gaston's Greatest produced and brought to you by Naomi Hunt and Amy Anderson from GSM Services. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.